Hey, Screen Teamers, welcome back to a brand new Screen Team right here on KWOC. My name is Chris, and for this edition of the show, all a half hour long, going to be joined by Jake. Now, earlier this year, Jake and I did a James Bond-themed episode where we featured Connery, and we featured Daniel Craig, and also the guy from To Kill... what's his name? Timothy Dalton.
There you go.
Timothy Dalton. Man, there's so many Bonds. It's so confusing. But we're going to finish up this show with the Bonds we didn't do. So we're going to do George Lazenby, and we're going to take care of Pierce Brosnan, James Bond. But this first one, Roger Moore. Now, when I was a kid, I loved Roger Moore. Loved him. Thought he was just cool. He was suave. He just, he had those one-liners, and he just had that coolness about him, man. And we're going to review a movie that I had never seen before until now. It's called Octopussy. And Jake, where do you put Roger Moore on your scale?
No. Roger Moore does some things well. He carries the swagger and the sophistication of Bond really well.
He does that wink and smile to the camera very well.
He does that little fourth wall break nods and things like that. Not obviously, but right. He lets the audience know that it's a movie.
Right. right.
And he got the one-liners, and he's got that. He does good with the romancing scenes as well. I think he does good with the leading ladies.
Sure.
Where he doesn't do good for me is a lot of the action scenes, because I didn't notice this until I watched a Roger Moore interview.
Yeah.
He closes his eyes every time he pulls the trigger.
No way.
Yeah. He's so afraid of guns that he can't pull the fake, the guns on. He can't shoot blanks without closing his eyes. So, but not only that, I think Roger Moore was the right Bond for the time, but also during the time which he was Bond, the movies started getting a little wacky.
Sure.
And it's kind of one of those things. It's like, well, it's kind of the golden age of Bond, but at the same time, for me, it's also, well, I don't know. It's a dual-edged sword,
Is it fair to say you prefer maybe the more realistic films? You like the Daniel Craig films, but you also told me you like the Sean Connery earlier ones too, right?
Yeah, the Connery movies from the 60s, particularly Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Thunderball, and Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Those are like the four solid Connery films that I think most Bond performances should be based upon. And for that time and for the tone of those movies to go over, and of course there was some zany stuff in there. Bond had his gadgets and things like that, but I think it was done a little bit more subtly when they just kind of open up the toy box when Roger Moore steps in and start doing some crazy stuff.
And he did a lot of crazy stuff in this film. In the opening sequence, he's in like at a military base or whatever. He steals like a truck, and inside the truck is a beautiful plane. He just starts flying all over the place, and they shoot like a big rocket at him. So the rocket has like a heat-seeking device on it, so it's following him all over the place. So to get rid of the rocket, Roger Moore, James Bond, he goes back to the base that he was just at, where all the bad guys were, and he flies through like this,
it's an airplane hangar.
And the rocket follows him, and they're closing the door at the very last second. He does one of these where he flips the plane, and he barely makes it out, and then the rocket blows up the airplane hangar,
and all the bad guys.
You go to cue the
intro theme, right?
Yeah. So Octopussy, do you like it?
It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
Not the best Bond movie.
Not the best movie.
It has some really cool scenes. Like, that opening, because for one thing, he has this cool little mini jet that's hidden in a horse trailer behind a fake horse's butt. And it just lifts up and like, oh, that horse's butt isn't real. There's a plane in there. James Bond, that's one strange place to pull a plane out of. But anyway. And it's just like, yeah. But then there's a scene later in the film that they're in India, and there's a scene where they're on those little three-wheel, I don't even know what you call them, little scooter taxi things, little three-wheeler taxi things. There's a name for them, can't think of it. But there's an awesome chase going through the streets of New Delhi on those scooters, and that's pretty cool. Yeah. And you've got bad guys that have like weird saw blade weapons and things like that. This guy's got like a saw blade yo-yo. It's kind of like henchman number one, but just generic henchman overall.
And there was that scene where they're, like you said, they're in the New Delhi market area or whatever, and there's a guy sleeping on one of those beds that's got the the spikes on him or whatever, and he gets up and James Bond punches a guy and the guy falls, the bad guy falls on the spikes, and the other guy was like, hey, that was my bed, you destroyed it. So we got the campy parts, you got the fun parts.
It's a fun movie, it really is.
Yeah,
it's just it's got camp, not Moonraker level camp, but somewhere between Live and Let Die and Moonraker.
Sure. Who is our bad guy in this film? Because there's we've got like almost like a spider web of bad guys. We've got the one bad guy that James Bond plays that gambling game with.
Yeah.
And then there's like the Russian guy who's just all crazy and out of whack in this movie.
Yeah, you've got it. I mean, there's too many really to tell. There's General Orlov, who's one of them.
Right.
And he's like the Russian that wants to take over Europe.
Right.
That's like a big story plot point. And then there's too many of them. Then you've got the other guy that's kind of the ringleader, I think probably the overall kind of underworld boss who there's some sort of scheme with this Fabergé egg. We don't want to give too much away.
Sure.
And there's a cool auction scene where you're getting Bond, running up the bid, and he ended up switching the auction item for a fake, and classic James Bond stuff. That's a scene I always really liked in that movie. But then you've got this circus stuff. Somehow there's circus performers involved. It's thinking back, man, I'm just like, I need to watch this again because I know what's going on.
Yeah, I watched it once. I'm good. I'm gonna stick with Daniel Craig and Pierce. And
in my mind, probably have divided this up into different parts of different Bond movies, but it's all one movie. It's really a globe-trotting Bond movie because you've got. It's all over Europe. You've got Paris. You've got India, which is in the Asian subcontinent, and London, and it just kind of wanders all over the place. You've got, I think there's a thing where gypsies like come over and have a big battle at a castle. It's so weird.
Let me ask you this, Jake. I was thinking about this, and when they first introduced, is the character's name Octopussy? Or is it something? Anyway, whoever that character is, I was thinking about something. Has James Bond in all of its films, have they ever had a female villain, like the boss villain? Not I'm not talking about like we're gonna be reviewing GoldenEye where Femi Jansen is, obviously a villain. I'm talking about like, the arch enemy. Has James Bond had a female arch enemy villain?
Not without having like a bad guy with it. I was thinking in The World Is Not Enough, which is the second to last that Pierce Brosnan did. There is, the femme fatale who kind of starts out that, this is who you're going to help. This is who Bond is going to help.
Sure.
But it ends up she was captured by the main bad guy and then ends up betraying Bond. So that one's kind of close, but not. I mean, maybe this might be the only one, and she flip flops. So.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. Kind of interesting. So, movie's called The Octopussy, starring Roger Moore, and of course, it's one of those you can check out if you watch, TBS or TNT, or if you have it on DVD, you can find it there as well. All right. We've got more James Bond movies to review. We'll do Her Majesty's Secret Service next, right here on the Screen Team.